Welcome to the SIP, the Solstice Innovations podcast. In each episode, we chat with industry experts and innovators in insurance and insurtech. Join us for insights on trends, technologies, and the stories driving our industry forward. Let's sip on knowledge together at the SIP.
Hi, I'm John Umstead with Solstice Innovations. On this episode of the SIP, our guest is Gregg Porter, the National Flood Sales Director with Bankers Insurance Group. All right, Gregg, well, thanks for being here today with us. We really appreciate it. Why don't we start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. John, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here with you this morning. So my name is Gregg Porter. I am the National Flood Sales Distribution Manager for Bankers Insurance Group out of St. Petersburg, Florida. I've been with the company almost a year and a half now. Insurance, hard to believe. I just looked at the calendar the other day, almost 20 years. So I've been in the industry since 2006. So a big year for me next year. And for the company I work with, by the way, Bankers is turning 50 next year, and I turned 20. I wish I turned 20. I turned 20 as far as my experience goes in the insurance industry. I've been on the carrier side for 90% of those, 90% of the time. And I've been in the flood insurance space, which we're going to talk about today, since 2013. So next year will be 13 years doing flood. I did a little bit of private passenger and commercial vehicle insurance prior to that in the late, mid 2000s when I started the industry. And I'm never leaving flood insurance. I'm going to be here until the very end. I definitely love the industry, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Flood insurance is one of those things where, everyone that's involved in it likes to say, once it pulls you in, there's no getting out.
I know.
You're just in it.
I'm stuck in a good way, right? No, I don't want to. I really do. I think the camaraderie, meeting you this past June in Dallas at the conference, and the APCIA puts on a great event, of course, and I was happy to connect with you. And it really is, no matter what you write, whether it's homeowners, auto, work comp, flood, it's a great industry for sure. And I'm happy to be here and promote, hence what we're doing right now with technology on this platform to be able to tell people what we do.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the conference and the APCIA. So our last guest on the podcast was Don Griffin from the APCIA. And we talked a little bit about how this year, 2026, I should say, the conference has been expanded beyond flood to include wind and fire. Let's talk about that flood conference, the 2025 National Flood Conference. You sat on a panel that discussed the use of technology in marketing. So what was kind of your biggest takeaway from that discussion?
Well, the two letters were the biggest takeaway, and that's AI. We heard a ton about that, which is awesome. Embracing technology, looking forward to, Google Gemini, ChatGPT, all these wonderful tools, business intelligence tools that we have at our disposal now. That was my biggest takeaway of all these panels, and very interesting things on how claims is using this, customer service, underwriting, to better fine tune their assessment of policies. The big thing, the panel that I was on, and it was awesome to be there. And of course, Phil Wills did a great job, being the moderator. And I was honored, and I look forward to doing more of these panels, is what happens now from an example of course, like elevation certificates. What do we do going forward? Everything is so high tech now when it comes to the technology that we use, SAR, synthetic aperture radar, when it comes to a live look at flooding in progress, LIDAR technology, which stands for light detection and ranging. Whenever these elevation certificates are done, a surveyor or an engineer did a great job 5-10 years ago, and they still do. But now that at the disposal now with drone footage, the way that they're doing this with radar, lasers, pretty much instant. So that is awesome for the insured to have an elevation certificate. Flood mapping and future catastrophes, it's not going anywhere. Unfortunately, we're going to continue to see this peril of flood, whether it be from a storm, a major hurricane, or just rapid rainfall from an inland flood risk. We are seeing more and more of these flood events throughout the year. We had in 2025, we've had over 4,000 flash flood warnings. That's a record. And I think it goes back to like 1985 or 1986 is the last time we had that many warnings. So that's a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to flood, of course, but that just shows you the high risk now that we're seeing to be prepared, because a warning means flooding is imminent. But back to the takeaway, though, is just what we can do with technology in this panel to really embrace a footage, again, using drones, using radars, using all of these wonderful business intelligence tools to make flood insurance more, A, of course, to promote awareness, and B, to be better prepared for the risk of flooding.
Yeah, and when those warnings occur, making sure that people are actually paying attention to them and heeding those warnings is another thing we certainly don't want. We don't want people becoming complacent. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And we've seen that before. We see a big rush to buy flood insurance policies when the event happens or after a storm. Even if you didn't flood, you're like, well, we should buy one. Unfortunately, speaking of complacent, John, I'm glad you brought that up. You'd be surprised how many times these policies don't renew. They just, hey, okay, well, but a lot's happened. And that was 10 months ago. We're coming up on a year. It's sunny and pretty outside. Let's just cancel this flood policy. Again, obviously we don't want that, but unfortunately that does happen.
Yeah, we talk a lot about selling new policies, in the flood insurance industry, and we maybe don't talk about retention enough, how we can accomplish a better, higher retention rate is, I think, pretty critical to ultimately closing what's commonly referred to as a flood insurance gap in the United States.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Hey, Greg, so, flood insurance, to that point, it can be a tough sell, both to agents to get them to sell it and to consumers to accept that they have a need for it or should consider it. So how do you see technology helping bridge that awareness and education gap?
It starts online, honestly. I mean, look at technology, look at search engine optimization, look at Google search ads, TikTok, YouTube. I can't tell you how many agents have channels now dedicated. And these are maybe, you think of these are agencies that have 500 plus employees. No, these are smaller, even, less, kind of more of a mom and pop that have a YouTube channel now. LinkedIn, wonderful tool to get content out there. Insurance companies, agencies, MGAs, a lot of things are being driven to, we have an app now. I go to a lot of trade shows, by the way, and you'd be surprised. Sure, the foot traffic is great with these retail operations. They want people coming in and out, but I'm not going to say those days are long gone or they're threatened to be, because I still think the face-to-face is very, it's imperative to success.
Yeah.
However, how we convey that information is changing rapidly. Attention spans. I don't want to digress too much. I'm a huge baseball fan, but look at the pitch clock, with Major League Baseball. These games used to be 4.5, 5-hour marathons. Now they're condensed to 2.5, 3 hours. And, you always think of things being aimed to the younger generation. Well, maybe, but I think that's really just everybody now with attention spans. Let's watch a 15, 30-second clip. Let's do things like that. And content creation. Of course, you see a lot of these on TikTok and Instagram, a lot of content creators. I'm seeing that with insurance, which is wonderful. Tell me about flood in 30 seconds. Give me a 30-second short about, do I need flood insurance? Why am I in the flood zone? Why am I not? Of course, everybody's in a flood zone. The difference is the degree of risk, but just really using all these tools that we have. And it's a great platform. It really is, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, another great way for agents to get messaging across. But I think, LinkedIn probably. I get on there. 5 years ago, I did not see as many agents. Now I get on there. I still see counterparts, people that are in the industry, but I see like customers of mine. I see a lot of agents now. They're hiring marketing directors and are channeling their message through these platforms.
I've always been of kind of two minds when I see various posts on LinkedIn. One of the first things I ask myself is, who's the intended audience for this post? Especially when it comes to probably less so with insurance companies, more so with the vendors that serve those insurance companies. Sometimes those messages are speaking directly to their customers. And I'm kind of two minds. Is that effective? Is that not effective? And I'm not sure.
Well, back to baseball, not everybody's going to bat 1,000, but I think if you look at the big picture, 30 to 40%, 300 or 400, back to baseball batting average is great, right? So
Yeah.
The mind, we always want to, the mind says, let's get everyone is going to be looking at this content, and realistically, probably not. But if you can find, it's kind of like an open rate, right? When you send out an email campaign, you want
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Well, but you're not, what if you get 35 to 50%? Okay. Well, hey, that's pretty good. So you just kind of do it that way. But I agree with what you're saying though, as far as who's receiving the content.
Hey, so you had mentioned earlier about the human touch and AI. So let's hit that. Let's hit that topic directly. So, you got a lot of agencies and carriers that have some concern, or maybe even employees that have some concern about tech replacing that human connection. How do you strike the right balance between automation and the personal relationships?
So you embrace the technology with open arms. You don't want to be the ones to say, I'm not adapting. You're going to be left behind. Of course, as we all know, you can go back to technology in 2000, and 10 years ago in 2015. Now here we are. So you embrace it, but you never neglect, in my opinion, you don't want to neglect the human touch with that customer service rep, with that producer that maybe can get out there and say, you know what, so-and-so, I'm going to be at your job site. I'm going to quote this risk. You want the GL, you want a work comp policy, whatever that line of insurance is. I'm going to meet you for a coffee, something like that, where you can still shake a hand. You can still look, I know, look 5 years ago, right, with COVID, that changed the way we worked, and you had to adapt, Zoom and Teams and the hybrid model. But you never neglect, you never want to be that fully. I don't like when people say, let's go, we're going to be 100%, on, no, you want to have a presence online, not 100%. You want to still have that retail model where I can do, and I can embrace AI. We can do something on the app. But hey, if I'm here for you, right? I have this retail operation. I have a storefront. I'm in a strip mall. I'm in a 12th floor of a high-rise building. Wherever you are, still have that human touch. I think it's important. Being a consultant is better in the flesh and in person than it would be ever through an iPhone, through a Zoom or a Teams meeting.
It's not unlike, earlier you're talking about all of the various platforms, and kind of the lesson there is that, you have to be where your customer is, right, in terms of the technologies and the platforms, but also from just a mental state or a preference state. Where is your customer? And a simple example of that is, during the claims process, you're going to have some policyholders that, they're in crisis mode. The last thing they want to do is talk to somebody if they can get a claim, first notice of loss submitted through some sort of technological means that doesn't require personal interactions. That's what they're going to want. But then you have others that are in that crisis mode, right? That that's the last thing they want to do. They want to talk to somebody. They want that personal connection. And so you have to be able to offer both to satisfy the customer's needs, meet them where they are.
Absolutely. So yeah, a little side, it's funny. I have a nephew who's younger. He's a sophomore in college, and we were talking. We had some Thanksgiving conversations last week, and we were just catching up. And he knows I'm in insurance, and he bought a new Jeep, very nice Jeep, and he was very excited. And of course, car insurance is for a 19-year-old, kind of expensive there. But no, he was asking basically like, where should I go? And I was naming some people, and where he lives, because I know some independent agents, right? And the first thing that he said was, do I have to go there? Do I need to meet this person? This night, his 19-year-old mind was like, I want to do this literally on Thursday, on Thanksgiving Day, on the app, where he's not looking for that, getting to know that agent, right? He's looking to just make it. It's a transaction to him. Let me buy this insurance policy, and I don't need anyone to guide me. I just want to be able to have insurance. Whereas I was looking at, to build that relationship, and maybe even like, that agent would eventually, when I became a homeowner, maybe to, sell me my home insurance. So definitely changed a lot, but, kind of in the marketplace though is going to be geared, when you think of technology, I really do think that we're in a good way. Everyone is, utilizing it, no matter what age you are.
Yeah. And it all kind of bubbles down to, or up to, you have to know your customer, and there are all kinds of ways to get to know your customer that exist today that didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. And a lot of that comes down to data, which leads to the next topic I'd like to talk about with you. And that is data and using it for modern marketing purposes. It's easy for me to say. What kinds of data have been valuable for you and for bankers in refining your marketing strategies?
I think business intelligence tools that allow you to pinpoint your agent's book of business to see where you want to spend time wisely, sort of a strategic routing when you're out in the field versus just sort of spinning your wheels and just wondering, okay, does this agent write flood? Maybe they're more life and health. Maybe they're not even a P&C agent. I've seen that before a lot, by the way, especially with some of these mergers and acquisitions you've seen where a lot of them may not even write P&C. So you're wasting your time. And sure, you might get to, okay, I came to your office. I got to see your building. We shook hands. Nice to meet you. But what was my return on investment for this actual visit? Maybe not much. Business intelligence tools let you scan a zip code, getting down to a granular level, Tennessee, Georgia, but that's great. Those are 2 states. Let me go more into Nashville, Atlanta, wherever you may be. Okay, but what about this zip code? Okay, let me type in this zip code and see an agent's book of business where, wow, they have $2 million in flood spread through 3 different carriers. Maybe worth my while to go talk about a book roll potential, maybe, right? Or if I'm, if I'm working for a homeowner agency, they write 60% of their book of business is, okay, well, now I know where to go. I think things like that, the way it was before, and I don't look at it as wasting time because maybe you didn't get what you wanted out of it, but you still made a contact, a connection. And I've had agents that said, hey, I didn't write much flood 2 years ago when you came in my office, but now I do. Can you come back? So maybe that happens sometimes, which is great because, at the time, again, it wasn't a wasted visit, but maybe I didn't get what I wanted out of it. So I think these business intelligence tools let you really, there's like heat map technology, by the way, which lets you see exactly at a county level where these people, where these agents are writing their insureds, where are these policies coming from. And I think that's crucial because it allows you to say, okay, to better use of my time, and I can do more things now that I have my time freed up. And I'm actually, there's purpose involved with some of these visits now. Not to say that there wasn't before, but it's just more fine tuned.
Yeah, it's greater than the ability to pull a deeper level of data. It's the ability to turn it quickly without a lot of manual effort into information that you can actually use. So which kind of leads into the next question I'd like to ask is about technology in general. We've mentioned a few of them as we've been talking here, but over the years, what really has been, if you could name one technology that's really made a big difference in your sales operations and procedures, what would that be? And kind of flip side to that is, what do you see as still having a lot of untapped potential?
Well, the latter part, John, I think the untapped potential, in my opinion, is what we kind of heard we heard a little bit at the conference this past June, is the D2C, the FEMA direct to consumer. It gives you options to say, well, guess what? I can start the flood quote, which is a wonderful technology tool for the insured. I can get this thing going. I feel like I have some say, that take ownership. I love the FEMA concept of the D2C. Oh, but wait a minute. Let's incorporate the independent agent as well. So you can start the quote and then be in contact with somebody that can help you, back to what I said a few minutes ago, maybe develop that relationship and be the consultant. And the former, so your question before, as far as what we've seen, I honestly, I think LinkedIn really, when it comes to marketing campaigns, I remember, when I started back in, postcards have always been around. Postcards are still around, but you check the mail. What do you see? Oh, okay. Probably toss it. It's the junk mail, whatever. Even with back to, search engine optimization, you type in a zip code, 32459, 7, wherever you may be. And to be able to be connected pretty much instantly with an insurance agent, is great. And I'm seeing a lot of search ads. I was watching a TV show the other day. If you look at Hulu, you look at Netflix, some of these TV commercials, they're not all national brands. Sometimes it's, wait, okay, that's an agent that's right down the street from me. QR codes. I didn't talk about this one yet. Speaking of technology, that's a big one too, by the way. I go to a lot of trade shows. Scan this with your phone. You just take out your phone. Okay, here's the QR code. Brings me to a link instantly. Think about that from a technology standpoint, from getting appointed from a carrier standpoint. If you scan a QR code, it's going to take you to the DocuSign link to get appointed. So there's a lot. There really is a lot of technology. Sort of where I think the industry is going when it comes to advertising is more of these streaming services. It's more of these shorts, these YouTube shorts, these Instagram shorts. It's really definitely, it's changing so much. I love it. I think it's great, but it's amazing, how it's just happening so fast.
It is happening fast, yeah, and a lot of those simple examples that you give, like QR codes, for example, it really has become, if you're at a trade show and you walk past someone's booth and they've got just nothing on display that shows that they're using modern technology to market who they are, then
Right.
it may raise red flags, right? You start to think, well, maybe they aren't innovating as much as somebody else that has these tools on clear display.
You don't want people waiting, especially in today's world. Maybe that worked. I remember a world where it worked, kind of be patient, but no, it's rapidly evolving.
Yeah, we don't have the patience. That's for sure. The consumer doesn't have patience either. So, well, hey, Gregg, before we wrap up totally here, we've covered a lot of territory or a lot of ground, so appreciate that. But before we get to the last question, just like to ask if you have anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about.
I want to go back to the conference in Dallas, the APCIA, and you mentioned, of course, more of a wind and fire. They're expanding it. I love that. I think we're in the same, even though we have different lines of insurance, we're still there for the customer. Bottom line, right? That's who we're there for. Where the rubber meets the road, that's where you buy the insurance policy. If I get in a car wreck, I want to be able to go to a collision shop, get my bumper fixed, what it may have you. I have 2 feet of water in my home. I want to be able to have the mold remediation. I want the claims adjuster. You want to be taken care of. And I think that that's something we should never, that's what we're here for. We get a stigma. There's a stigma sometimes. Oh, you sell insurance, it's a ripoff. I don't need, there's a lot of course, we can go down that rabbit hole as far as, what people think of the industry that are not in the industry. But I think that's changing with technology and with awareness and promoting people that look, no, it's for your protection. It's the transfer of risk, right? That's the insurance 101 right there, right? The transfer of risk. And I think if we can not, there's this sort of, you demonize the industry and there's all these negative things, but with technology, back to what we had, at the conference in Dallas, let's promote the great things about what we do as insurance professionals from the inception of the policy to when they need it most at claim time.
So, Gregg, let's wrap things up with one final question, and that is really around you. You've been a sales leader for some time. You've got a lot of experience, a lot of success under your belt. So what kind of advice might you give to someone that's perhaps new, just starting out in a sales role?
They have to be able to be liked. And that might sound funny, but it's very true. I had a financial advisor tell me this years ago. Gregg, there's a lot of people, you take the Series 6 exam, you get these licenses and you sell stocks and they think that you're just after their money. And I asked them, you have this wonderful clientele. I mean, this person was very well off. He says, Gregg, it's simple. I get to know them. They want to buy something from someone they like. And I said, what about your counterparts that are not doing? He's like, he even said that some of them have more credentials than me. They may know more than me. They might, but they're just not hitting something. Something is missing. And if I were to guess, they're not well liked out there. And it's very true. And he was very much involved in a football, he had a football state of mind. And he said it's the same thing with recruiting. If you get playing time at a university, and I played sports my whole life, but what if you're not mixing? What if there's no chemistry with the coach and the coaching staff? But I'm playing, which is great, but I'm not really enjoying it. Same thing with selling. Never take off, be that consultant. Don't be that pushy salesperson. If I were to tell somebody, and I do mentor some people coming out of college and joining the insurance industry. They're going to buy from you. Might not be overnight, but hang in there, get to know them, convey your product, what you're selling. But at the end of the day, build a relationship. The sale will come, but build a relationship first.
Gregg, really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you very much.
John, thank you so much. My pleasure. I really enjoyed it as well. Hope you have a great day.